Before I get to the interview with my guest tonight, I just wanted to point out that Flight of the 50 Fancies is an ad-free experience, and I wanted to make mention of a unique opportunity being offered by a laboratory in New Haven, Connecticut. It says here, extra-dimensional scientists from space clone a cannibalistic laboratory over the Church of Mind-Controlling Mutant Time Travelers. And it says here, and let me just make sure I'm reading this right, you too can help clone this laboratory, and with your help, the scientists can finally figure out how laboratories who are cannibalistic can feed. What? That's what it says. You can sign up. Just go to newhavenlabs.edu. Sounds like they'll hook you up. Make sure that you bring a seatbelt, because it sounds like some wild stuff. And as a purely clerical motion, I needed to point out that previous episodes of the Flight of the 50 Fancies has been recorded using Og Vorbis technology, and we will be discontinuing that trend for a number of reasons so boring that you will never be privy to them. Except for this one. I received late last night a telephone call from a panicked acquaintance who had been listening to the Flight of the 50 Fancies. And I don't believe my friend when he says that Og Vorbis are words in a Martian tongue, and that the technology is actually from beyond our world. This is patently nonsense, and I will say this on the air. There's nothing wrong with Og Vorbis, but I owe this person a serious favor, and it's not up to me. You're listening to Flight of the 50 Fancies. Very exciting guest named David Bowie tonight, and I just wanted to thank him so much for coming all the way from Newton, Tennessee to come see us here in the studio tonight. What a treat. Welcome, David. I'm glad to be here, Peter. Now, David, it sounds like you have a very interesting job that you would like to share with us. That's right, I am a game show host, and it's one of those game shows where if you lose, you die. You know, I'm sure you've heard of all those. Like, it's kind of a trope, and if it's called Questions and Answers. I have very good time on that show because I always live. But the contestants have to choose the answers, and sometimes those answers lead them to hell. And we put a video camera on their bodies
understand. And then when they go to hell, we see them dying, melting. It's just disgusting. And we tape it for the live studio audience, who are all just like chomping at the bit to see, because they're the only reason any of them are there is because they just want to see all these people get like slaughtered, and like, so like they're hoping that the answers are hard. And we put this YouTube video up of this guy getting the first answer wrong, and the first questions are so easy. This one was, what is the capital of the United States? And it was a multiple choice. And they were Seattle, Washington, Washington, D.C., Washington, Delaware, and Wilmington, Delaware. And he said Seattle, Washington, and we slit his throat. And they were laughing because they didn't understand that, like, violence is like gross. They were just like laughing and clapping when this guy's like body was getting totally like slit open. And we have these jackals in a cage that we don't feed, and when we do feed them, it's on the meat of the losers, because our slogan is the losers get eaten by hungry jackals. And I gave my arm to one of them once because it felt so ecstatic to just like cut off my arm, just feed it to these jackals. And I swear to God, Peter, I could feel them biting it as I watched them eat my arm, which I had severed beforehand. I could feel the teeth popping my skin, and I fell into this ecstatic trance, and I could see all the planets in our solar system at once, and I could feel them, and I could feel the jackals' mouths, and I could feel their breath. This was unfortunately during a commercial break and was not broadcast. It's very interesting. Tell me more about the contestants. We don't call them contestants. We call them combatants. And we've already murdered over 1,000 of them. And under the grate of all the buzzers, there's a pool of blood that we boil after the show. And we turn it into thick blood cubes, and we give it to charity. So don't take this question the wrong way. But I'm just surprised that a show of such carnage would be interested in giving blood to a charity. Yeah, our show is non-profit arm of the Red Cross. And if you want to give blood to the Red Cross, just go online at redcross.com. Otherwise, we'll just keep slitting throats and like disemboweling guts, and the blood will seep into our collection sluice, and it'll just get trucked right off to the Red Cross's headquarters. And tell me how you got onto this show. How did you become the host of this game show? Questions and answers, right? That's right, it's called Questions and Answers. And I got on the show because my father works for the Red Cross as a bloodletter. And he pulled a few strings in L.A., where I was born and where I was raised and where this show takes place. Unless we go on the road, for example, to Newton, Tennessee, where I was before I drove up here in my bloodmobile. My father pulled a few strings in Los Angeles for me because I wanted to be a game show host, and now I am, and I don't have an arm anymore because the jackals ate it up. So if you have jackals on the show that eat body parts, a lot of that blood must be mingled with jackal saliva and is rendered medically inadequate. I get that question a lot. But the fact is, we actually have very strict protocols that divide the food for the jackals away from the blood we donate to the Red Cross. And the jackals don't get their spit in the latter sluice. And usually the question I get after that is, hey, aren't there different blood types? How is your blood gonna be medically adequate if you're O and you're B negative and your A and your AB are all mingled together in a black stew? To which question the answer is, we only have contestants with the same blood type per episode. We have very strict entry protocols as well. Questions and answers is not some kind of gladiatorial barbarism. It's a very well established medical / charity event, and we take our position very seriously. And my father is going to make sure that we go into a 5th season. And if you have to say something about that, well, you can just come on the show and tell me, by the way, what's your blood type, Peter? I think it might be O. Am I the universal leech or the universal martyr? That is a very excellent trivia question. One that if you screwed it up, you might be food for the jackals. I believe you may recall the poet Hallows Eve, who penned these pleasing lines: out of love, out of mind, out of food, out of time. And in your case, you will be out of time because our trivia questions are impossible to answer, because if they were too easy, those who need blood would never get any. And in the case of the jackals, the third quandary, namely out of food, would immediately be false, because your flesh would be their food, and you would feel what my phantom limb felt. You would feel what my arm's ghost felt as the jackals snapped at it. It was one of the best moments of my life, and I highly suggest you come on our show. I am personally inviting you for the sake of the medical community who needs the blood really bad. And if you want to donate blood, make sure to go on redcross.org or get on your phone and check out the Red Cross's apps. If I am not mistaken, they have an app that'll tell you when the bloodmobile is in town, and you can send them your blood and they'll put it in the fridge. And if you want to be on our show, just type in questionsandanswers.com and then submit, and make sure you have proper documentation about your blood type so we can put you on the right show. Thanks so much, David. This is very important work you're doing, and I think my listeners will all agree that we need more people like you. So I'm back with my guest, David Bowie, who is the host of the popular LA game show, Questions and Answers. Believe it or not, I have a ton of questions for you about this show. But I was just wondering, I think this is sort of a wild show, and I think we need to hear a story about the hardest day on the job. I'll tell you what day that was. I have an answer all lined up for you, Pete. Now, close your eyes and think deep. Where were you on the morning of April 29th, 2014? April 29th. I do not remember. Lucky you. You want to know where I was? Yes, of course. I was in Los Angeles, knee-deep in gut. Knee-deep, really? Ankle-deep in gut for the Jackals. Because I had forgotten to put on my tie that day, and my father has a very strict rule about wearing ties to work, and I forgot it. So my father made me go down into the Jackal hut and scoop out all the guts. We called it the gut hut for reasons I can guarantee myself that you understand. And my father would not accept my most desperate apologies until he saw all the guts come out of the Jackal hut, because these were the guts that the Jackals had bitten and refused. They did not like all of the guts we gave them. Sometimes the Jackal, whose name was Interangelos, was a Jackal who didn't like the pancreas of our contestants, whereas the Jackal named Stadiomissnik was a Jackal who loved pancreases, so they would often be in perfect unity when their kennels were together. But when their kennels were separate, Interangelos would have a pile of pancreases that he wouldn't touch, and Stadiomissnik would be dying, would be biting on her cage, because Interangelos' cage was right across, and Stadiomissnik saw that pile of pancreases and just wanted to chomp away. And this was the only time I was down in the Jackal hut below where the game show was filmed. And that day, instead of the host was not me, instead it was my father who told everybody on stage, thank God that it wasn't broadcast, because it was during a commercial break, when he told the audience that I was down in the Jackal hut, scooping guts and feeding pancreases to Stadiomissnik, and feeding lungs to Interangelos. And don't let me convince you that we only had 2 jackals. We had 15 jackals. There was Interangelos, Stadiomissnik, Magos Appellabant, Viros Nimirum, Sapientes Astronomos in omni doctrinarum genere exercitatos, doctrinae Danielis prophetae, custodes ex quo hominum ordine quida regem Christum, locum obtinent magi, homagium praesiterunt, and corporeos et ministros. And these were the finest jackals I had ever laid my eyes on, and I was so jealous of their lives for a moment, because I wished to chow and chaw at arms and guts. But unfortunately, I was made to be the host of questions and answers because my father said that I was loquacious.
Well, I just want to thank David Bowie for showing up at the studio, and I wish you the best of luck with your game show. It sounds very intriguing, and I would be happy to be a part of it whenever I am in town. I got a pretty cool letter from someone who just translated a interesting work. They don't want me to say their name, but I have been instructed to say that they work out of this publisher of pretty wild stuff called Motilal Banarsidass out of India. So they just translated this book, and he wanted me to read this one text from it. And the book is called the Compendium on Reality, and this is text number 1495. I guess it's a pretty long work, so he didn't send me it all, but he did translate it all, and this is just one of at least 1,495 texts. And there's also a commentary after the text, which I was also instructed to read. It's some pretty wild stuff, so here goes. Text 1495. It is only when the fire exists whenever there is smoke that its concomitance is clearly perceived. In the case in question, however, there is no such certain idea as that the thing spoken of exists wherever the word exists. Commentary. It is because of the well-recognized fact that wherever there is smoke there must be fire, that fire is said to be concomitant with smoke. There is, however, no such concomitance between the word and the thing spoken of. So I think probably everybody already knew that, because I mean, imagine if the word and the thing spoken of were concomitant. Everybody who just listened to my last guest would have to take a shower to wash all the blood off. So thanks for nothing. I'm just kidding. I'm just sort of a kind of a complicated idea, I guess, and I'm just not used to it. But just give me. I really appreciate all your letters. I've been getting so many letters, and I'm happy to keep it up, despite all my kind of sourpuss reactions. I appreciate all your letters, and flood me with letters. I love getting them. Tune into Questions and Answers tonight at 11.